Hello, dear viewers. Welcome to the New Times Roundtable. I am Moise Bahati. This has been a series of discussions on the DR Congo crisis, which escalated in January. A lot of developments have happened, and a lot of diplomatic efforts have been initiated to calm the tensions. But the conflict is not yet over. To make sense of the developments in this conflict, we are joined by the New Times Editor-in-Chief, James Munyaneza, to discuss this conflict and more. Today, we are privileged to have as our guest James Munyaneza, the Editor-in-Chief of the New Times, to discuss this conflict and what it entails in the conflict and security in Eastern DR Congo, but also in the greater Great Lakes region. Welcome.
Thank you, Moise. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Sir, a lot of things have happened since the M23 AFC rebels took control of Goma, but also Bukavu, cities in Eastern DR Congo. And you are one of the people who have been able to travel to this area. What does these visits, I understand that it's more than just one visit that you have had. What do these visits inform us, reveal to us about this conflict?
Thank you, Moise. Yeah, you're right. A lot has been happening with regard to the situation in Eastern Congo. Of course, we've seen a lot of diplomatic efforts. The latest to come into this whole situation is Qatar. We've seen EAC and SADC now appoint and they actually expand the panel of mediators, mostly former government leaders, former presidents, on the ground. I think was it last week when we saw M23 AFC saying they had repositioned their troops around Walikale. The Congo government said they were also committed to peace talks finally with M23. They made that a public kind of commitment as far as that is concerned. Rwanda welcomed the initiative, or rather the commitment or the statement from the warring parties. Qatar did the same, also welcomed these commitments, public commitments. So a lot has been ongoing as far as diplomatic, of course Angola pulled out, you know, in terms of leading the mediation process. Literally Angola as a mediator, a lot. You know, remember when EAC and SADC met, the leaders met in Tanzania. At one point, the leaders met also at the AU in Addis. A decision was agreed to bring together to kind of align or harmonize Nairobi process and Rwanda process. So, and literally that technically meant that Rwanda as we knew it, Rwanda, the talks in Rwanda between Congo and Rwanda were not going to be the same going forward. So yeah, but again we saw Angola now officially pulling out, saying since the president is now in charge of the president is the chair of AU, he wants to focus on the continental issues generally. Yeah, so of course going forward you want to see what happens, but then on the front lines, not so much has changed. I was privileged, of course, to go back to the eastern parts of Congo last week. I went to Goma. I wanted to see the recovery process again, to see the businesses, how they are faring, their issues with the banks closed, you know, because Kinshasa sort of delinked the banking system in areas controlled by M23 with the financial whatever ecosystem in Kinshasa, and that has created some bit of issues. But then when I reached, when I got to Goma, I was surprised to find that businesses are operating. Goma is largely an informal business space. You get there, you feel like once you're in Goma, you feel like everybody is a business person. Everybody has something to sell.
So that is about two months after Goma fell into the hands of the M23 rebels.
Yeah. So there's a lot of economic activity. There's a lot of construction going on. There's a lot of selling and buying, and they're using hard cash. The Congolese franc. So I saw schools were also open. Managed to visit a few of the schools, spoke to the administrators. There's still issues around the payment for salaries for teachers. There's some areas accumulating. But you could sense that life is coming back now. So then I had an opportunity again to go back to the airport to see the situation. Nothing has changed since the last time I was there. That was RFEB. We still have obviously M23 there in charge of the airport with a lot of equipment still on the runway, military vehicles. Most of these ones were abandoned, if not all, by the coalition forces when they lost the airport in January. In the control tower, it is still, a mess.
We understand that. I have seen an interview with the M23 commander, General Makenga, who was saying that actually the Goma airport might even be mined, that areas around it might be mined, so that might be one of the reasons why it has not reopened yet.
So you sense that it will take a bit of time for the airport to be in position to operate again. Of course, at the airport you still have SADC or some DRC troops. But then I wanted also to go outside of Goma. So I took the south-west axis, and Goma, Mubambiro, in Mugunga, that's between, again, Goma and Mubambiro, or Goma and Sache. The last time I had been there in FABE, there was still a lot of internally displaced persons in IDPs. In IDP camps, they are all gone. They are all back to their homes.
So the hundreds of thousands of people who were staying there are back in their homes.
The whole place is cleared. There's just business as usual. Of course, Muguga is also populated by people who were there before this conflict. The people who were there before, when I was there, the camps are all gone. So I also wanted to go and check out some of these people, see where they are, where they are now in their homes.
Of course, the AFC M23 rebels were actually, could I put it this way, they took a lot of bullets for having closed these IDP camps. But how is life in the communities where these people went back to?
So I proceeded to Sache. Sache is just next to Mubambiro. And I spoke to people who had for 2 years been at Mugunga camp. It's coming to now a month since they returned. They went back to Sache, and the life is starting to pick up again. They talked of significantly improved security. They talked of schools reopening. They talked of businesses running now again. They have been able to repair their homes. The community is up and running again. There are a few things that are still, again, missing, as you would imagine. Like I said, salaries and all, and of course, you want to see the situation improving continuously. But I didn't stop there. I still proceeded, went to Minova. Minova now is in South Kivu. And you basically have to go around the northernmost end of Lake Kivu. So you go the other side of Lake Kivu, along the western flanks of Lake Kivu. Yeah, so there are some people from Minova who had also been to Mugunga, but there are also sort of camps within that locality. So on the way to Minova, you go past Sasha and other localities like Bweramana until you reach Minova. So I spoke to people there in Minova. It's a very busy trading hub, but it is also at the same time, what do you call it, a kind of food basket of sorts, or bread basket of Eastern Congo. So in fact, it is Minova that supplied Goma through Lake Kivu for a period of around 2 years, when M23 blocked the road between Sache and Minova. So it was Minova that was the one supplying, sending food and all to Goma. So reaching Minova, it has so many hills, and people tilling back to their farms, and it's also rich in banana plantations. Beans are sprouting, and maize, and cassava. It's also very known for popular cassava.
So for bread, yeah, Ugari, or
It's a cassava-based dish called the Ikwamba. Kwamba. It's very. Minova is known for that. Yeah, so businesses are running. Spoke to people there, found them in their fields in the highlands of Minova, and they spoke of life again, starting to pick up again. They had abandoned, they had been pushed out, specifically by Burundian forces working with, of course, FDLR, because as I also found out in my previous visit, FDLR and Burundian forces were not just co-located, but we are literally mixed.
We'll come back to the FDLR and Burundian involvement in the conflict. But in the international community, and even the UN, MONUSCO head has been saying that the situation has worsened, the humanitarian situation is worse. But from what you are saying, from what the people have told you, from what you have seen, the situation might even actually be getting better.
Yeah, like I said, the people I spoke to, some of them said they had not enjoyed the security they're enjoying now for a long time. They didn't even remember the last time they enjoyed this. Because Minova, you have to remember, is a place that had so many FDLR elements, even before this war. So there has been a lot of violence over time in that area. And that worsened when the Burundians arrived. Because when they arrived, basically they took control of the highlands of Minova. Literally all of the hills in Minova were now occupied by the Burundian forces. FARDC, the Congolese troops, would normally be positioned at the foot of some of these hills, or midway somewhere, but Burundians would be at the top. Now, the people of Minova actually told me something interesting. They said at the time they were in camps, some of them would want to go back and see if they can actually try to till their lands and all again, and they were stopped and asked for a bribe for you to leave an IDP.
By who?
By the same people that wanted to create this narrative of this is a disaster situation. Yes, it was still insecure out there, but then whenever you would bribe, they would allow you to go out there. Now, when M23 eventually took Minova and these other areas of Sache, Mubambiro, Mugunga, and where, like in Mugunga, where there were a lot of IDPs, and they were asked to leave, some people couldn't believe that actually they are not going to be bribing to leave, because they thought it is the same, this is how it's supposed to be. So only to be surprised that, oh no, you actually can just go home, just go and go back to your places, you'll be safe, go and, yeah, so they're very grateful. And Minova people are among the first to have left because, as you can see, the plantations are already growing fast. So, so there's really a big disparity, a big disconnect between what people are saying out there and what you see on the ground. Yeah. So totally different.
So what makes this Eastern DR Congo crisis a regional problem? One of the aspects is the involvement of the FDLR, the group that was founded by remnants of the perpetrators of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, who fled there and have also been implicated in the genocidal violence or ethnic violence that has targeted the Congolese Tutsi communities. You have been to this place, but you have also interviewed former FDLR militiamen who have been now repatriated to Rwanda. What do they say about the conflict, but also what is the influence of the FDLR in this conflict?
It's so deep, and as you know well, FDLR has been at the heart of the dispute or disagreement over the years that have emerged between Kigali and Kinshasa. Obviously, FDLR, we know where it draws its roots from. It's from the forces, from the militia groups, from the radical groups that committed genocide against the Tutsi here in Rwanda, who then entered Congo with the objective of coming back to continue the killing in Rwanda. But in the meantime, they continued. They started targeting the Tutsi of the Eastern Congo areas of Masisi, Ruchuru, and all these other areas. Now, as you rightly stated, on my way to Goma last week, I had a stop at Mutobo. Mutobo is that place where former combatants come for, they're like transitioning out of that life of being a combatant, being a part of FDLR, transitioning back to normal life.
Maybe for our viewers, the Mutobo Demobilization and the Reintegration Center is located in Musanze district, and it has been running since 2004, if I remember well. So it's this is where these FDLR former combatants are now being.
And this has been ongoing for so many years. Tens of thousands have gone through that center. Tens of thousands of them. This is quite often not cited by anybody out there in the international media. But so there's always a group or groups at different stages of their training. So I wanted to speak specifically to a few of them, including those that came, that were repatriated or handed over to Rwanda, along with Brigadier General Gakwerere, Ezekiel Gakwerere, who was by the Secretary General of FDLR.
A high-ranking official in this militia.
Very high-ranking, but also influential and prominent in linking, in coordinating FDLR's role within the coalition.
The Congolese army coalition.
Yeah, because it was also the liaison. And that was confirmed again to me by the people I spoke to at Mutobo, including Major Ndayambaje. He was the second most high-ranking after Gakwerere in that group, the guys that were brought on March 1st, that were handed over to Rwanda. So I had an opportunity to speak to Major Ndayambaje, and for him it's very clear, very clear. So he says, one, FDLR are right center in front of FARDC whenever there are these operations, right? He says this goes back so many years, including those years when Rwanda would have joint operations with Congolese army.
The years of the
Moja to Kimia, is Kimia 1 or 2. He says FDLR would be in a locality, then just on the eve or a few days before the operation in that area, somebody within FARDC, the Congolese troops ranks, alerts them, give them this information, saying, you know what, please leave because we are going to be there in the next 2-3 days. So they would just move. And then these guys would come. There's no FDLR there. They are there for, they even know how many days they will be there. 3, 4, 5 a week. Once they have left, the FDLR guys come back.
So that means the collaboration between the Congolese army and FDLR did not just come about during the M23 crisis.
No. I mean, we all know this is not, from the days of Mobutu, then Kabila Senior, of course now Tshisekedi. Now, then he talks of, in fact, situations where now Gakwerere would literally be attending meetings. He would actually attend meetings, including at the Goma airport, where there was that joint command center of the coalition. You know the place where we spoke of maps that had targets in Rwanda that had been identified for strikes.
So this coalition, it is the coalition of the Congolese army that included...
The Congolese army, FDLR, the SADC troops, UN forces, because the MONUSCO has the mandate to support the UN forces. There was Alendo's, Burundi troops. Yeah. So
and also the European mercenaries.
The European mercenaries, all of them had representation at the joint command center or coordination center at the Goma airport, which I visited back in February. Yeah, so not just the Ambaje, but also the other guys, other young guys, including a young man who, if you saw in one of the videos that people captured, there's a young man who said, I fought at Kwamadimba. And Kwamadimba is basically just above or behind Sache. There's it's called also Antenne, Antenne. So
and these places are within kilometers from Rwanda, the Rwandan border, like within 10 kilometers.
No, it's not very far. Kwamadimba, it's like Sache is like 21 kilometers from Goma, so you would say something like 25 kilometers. But of course, this is the southern western axis. There's the northern eastern axis of Kanyamahoro and Chibati and Chilimanyoka, where these troops, the coalition troops, had deployed just along the Rwandan border, 3 kilometers, in some cases under 2 kilometers from the Rwanda border. And with trenches, their communication trenches and the artillery weapons facing Rwanda. And I asked some of the guys at Mutobo, they said, no, this was for us a clear plan. We knew that the plan was to actually attack Rwanda, which one of them said that maybe the obsession of planning on how to attack Rwanda could have worked against the coalition in a sense that they didn't pay enough attention to the M23 advancing from the north.
From the real front lines.
Yeah, from the real front lines. Yeah, so, and I think when I went to Minova last week again, I saw that the Burundian positions on some of those strategic hills were designed in a way that they also wanted at the same time to face Rwanda. Because you could see Rubavu from Minova, from some of these those hills, and then you could actually also see Rutsiro, Iwawa. And of course with the these long-range weapons and the ammunitions we saw in Goma, at Dati Amari, you could easily strike these areas. But then you had M23 stationed maybe in, I would say 15 kilometers in the high hills that overlook Sache. That overlook Sache, the other side, but also they overlook Minova. And maybe in the end there was divided attention. You want to face Rwanda, you want to maybe plan something to, regarding that, but then you also need to take care of M23. But I want also to, because also what made it very reasonable, that kind of argument, made it sensible, is the nature of the hills of Minova. Because the inclines are very steep for some of them, that it was even very hard to really supply logistics, take up logistics up the hill. But I think the obsession again of wanting to menacingly overlook regions of Rwanda, I think that worked against all these forces, including the Burundians and FDLR units that were in Minova.
There's another aspect of the interpretation of the Congolese army's build-up around Goma and in Goma, that the level of militarization and the amount of equipment and the long-range missiles or all these military equipment were not necessarily to fight the M23, because as you're saying, they were meant to fight Rwanda in the end. And Rwanda has made this clear that actually this coalition had intention to take the war to Rwanda.
Yeah, it was very obvious. I mean, there's no way. Why would you have a 20-millimeter anti-aircraft, for instance? M23 had no planes. They have no planes. Why would you have a 30-millimeter? Why would you have rockets that can go as far as 50 kilometers?
And Goma is
100% accuracy within of up to 40 kilometers. And there are thousands upon thousands of these rockets. At Goma, airport, last week, again, as I engaged the M23 commanders there, they found out that there were actually additional details how these guys had a plan in sort of phases. The implementation of this plan was kind of going to be in phases. So that would, the first one would include, they had envisaged attacking, Rwanda striking, and then come up to Kwanyirangarama, reach Kwanyirangarama.
This is very close to Kigali. That's within 44 kilometers
and then
from Kigali.
From there, then they would now engage drones, kamikaze and others.
Wow.
So it was a very clear documentation, very clear plan laid out for. So it was very obvious that, and I mean, as the M23 actually marched on Goma, these guys now started focusing and striking areas in Rwanda.
Of course, I know people died in Rwanda.
People died, 16 people. So, yeah. So the intention is very clear. There is no question about that. And I mean, Tshisekedi himself, the president, said it several times how he's going to strike Rwanda, Kigali, without setting foot in Rwanda. President Ishimio Burundi repeated the same. Because they had seen everything. They had 60,000 fighters in and around Goma. They had all this equipment worth billions of dollars. Yes.
I want us to talk about the Burundian involvement in the conflict, but before that, I want to... Rwanda has been raising its concerns about this coalition and its intentions, but it seems like not many have been actually willing to listen to Rwanda's concerns and security concerns, which have been there for many years, but which have, of course, should I say, multiplied or increased in recent years with the M23 rebel resurfacing in 2021. Why do people, many in the international community and these powerful organizations and countries, sort of ignored Rwanda's concerns?
I think, yeah, I probably have shared the dilemmas sometimes, but then in the grand scheme of things, at the end of the day, it is always not about facts. The truth, this is what happened, this is no. And as so many people have said, it is about interests. I have a friend who happens to be an academic who wanted to travel to Rwanda to do some research around matters around reconciliation and all. And his institution told him, look, no, that's not our interest. It doesn't make, for them, it's not a priority that there is a positive story of reconciliation in Rwanda.
It doesn't hold water for them.
It doesn't. Because that means actually bad news for them. There's a documentary around, I think about, it's titled How to Keep Africa in the Dark or something like that. And this guy talks of how the Western world must not allow sub-Saharan Africa to stabilize, because that means international Western corporations or companies are losing business. That takes away, that's seen as a threat to the rise and dominance of the West. The moment you start to set up facilities, let's say refining facilities for your minerals, that is unacceptable, because that takes away jobs for them. That also puts in a situation where you're able to manage your own affairs. So
this sort of system is not really ready to see Africa being more independent economically and socially.
Because you're directly threatening their interests. So you have to be in a situation, be in your place, be in a situation where you always need my protection you always need my aid, you always need, you're at my whims basically. Whatever I want is what you become. Yeah, so exactly this is what's playing out in Eastern Congo. And Congressman Jackson, who yesterday saw that video, he belongs to a rare breed of politicians who are still looking at facts and the truth on the ground and history, and he was asking, there are Congolese people here, they are being victimized, they are being targeted, they are being excluded, they are being denied their birthrights, they are being denied their citizenship. Rwanda has legitimate concerns. There is the FDLR.
And of course, Congressman Ronnie Jackson, who was in Congo, he also visited Rwanda. He said he went to Uganda and Burundi.
Yeah.
He was in this region as the special envoy of President Donald Trump.
Yeah.
This came in the wake that after Congo offered minerals to the Trump administration.
To be honest, of course, I didn't see that coming because of what I'm used to with regard to politicians of the West and how they pursue Western interests, sometimes individual interests, because all these systems, in most cases, they are corrupt. So it's not about, as you asked, so why are we not seeing people talking about FDLR and talking? It's about interests. FDLR is also serving their interests. Do you know that some companies, Western companies, that are running concessions in Congo, and FDLR is playing a part by, either guarding or the FDLR is enabling this illegal system to continue operating and to thrive. So the illegal ecosystem value chain around the mining business or minerals business in Eastern Congo, FDLR is deeply involved. Because FDLR also, and I spoke to the guys at Mutobo, they talked of how FDLR has interest in these concessions where they do not have mining or whatever activities. They tax, they levy taxes on these products, on these minerals. The charcoal business, FDLR,
their charcoal business
they actually, I was told by someone, again, a former FDLR, but this time around not at Mutobo, but across, when I crossed into Goma last week, and he said FDLR could be, at one point, and he suspects it's still the situation, could be in charge of more than 80% of the charcoal business in and around Goma.
This is a multi-billion dollar industry.
It's huge. It's huge. So of course, they do not use their real names, but in most cases, they actually are operating behind a Congolese partner.
So they control the business of charcoal.
They control the business of charcoal. So they do not only tax, they're not in charge of only, that was the situation, of course, before M23 took over, imposing taxes on the charcoal business, but they were dealers themselves. So many of their leaders, FDLR leaders, they have big businesses in Eastern Congo, including in Goma. They have homes in places like Kasenjese, in Mugunga, and these different other places, which the young guys now in the FDLR actually have been coming alive to, at least the guys I spoke to in Mutobo. They're like, no, why are we, because we are being told, we are being manipulated that we have to go back to Rwanda and remove this government, which is not good, which is not, shouldn't be there, which is composed of foreigners. That's what these kids were saying, that this is what they're being told. But then they're like, later, all the money we are collecting, we are giving to our commanders, to our bosses. The arms we are getting supplied by the Congolese government. Where is the money going? Only later to learn that actually these guys are amassing wealth. They have become tycoons, wealth men in that part of Congo. So, and you do not think that they're actually acting alone. They're not just, they are acting, of course, with Congolese army officers, politicians, but also different other players, including Western companies. Yeah, so look, take the example of the Italian ambassador who was killed at 2010, just between Kanyamahoro and Chibumba.
Was it 2018?
Around that time. The ambassador was ambushed by FDLR. Both killed. Did you see a lot of media coverage around that? No. He was just quietly, his body was picked up by a plane at the airport, and because, of course, I gather he was also involved with these minerals things, and so they knew that he had money, he was coming for this kind of shady deals, and I mean, and nobody, everybody knows it's FDLR, but they have all kept quiet because FDLR has been so influential and has been serving these Western interests. For some of the Western companies, actually, FDLR is a part and parcel of their business. So there's a lot of interests in and around the FDLR factor itself. Now, now I haven't even gone to the point of the political interests around maintaining FDLR there.
Yeah, of course, Rwandan leaders have also said that it looks like this group, there's people or a system that wants this group to exist there.
Yeah, to preserve them. Yeah, so this is the truth, and again, the fact is that keeping in any stable and chaotic Eastern Congo is serving somebody's interests. It's helping fuel the auto industry in the West. It's keeping jobs of Western citizens
in the humanitarian business, or
the humanitarian, but also weapons, all these kind of things.
Yeah, as a conflict, there has to be arms.
Yeah. So that is the reality. That's the reality.
So let's talk about Burundi. How Burundi comes into the picture is an interesting element. Burundi had troops in Eastern DR Congo, in South Kivu, that were deployed on a bilateral basis, but also Burundi had sent troops as part of the East African Community Regional Force that were forced out of Congo in December 2023. It's understood that the Burundian forces in Congo might be the upwards of 10,000. And one of Rwanda's concerns was that Burundi is not only fighting in Eastern DR Congo, but it's also collaborating with the FDLR, which presents, of course, a threat on Rwanda as a country, but also on Rwandan leadership. And in a recent interview with the BBC, the Burundian president, Evariste Ndayishimiye, denied involvement with the Burundian forces, but said he did not deny the fact that they actually fought alongside the Congolese army. And there's a lot of elements or twists and turns in this conflict. But what do you make of Burundi's involvement in this conflict?
That's a hard one, as much as it is also straightforward. But one, Burundi's involvement with FDLR has not started recently. We've had cases here, people have been put on trial here, and Burundi has been mentioned before several times, way even before the M23, the latest M23 conflict started.
So it has
remember the days we used to have a felon attacks from Burundi side, killing people in Nyungwe, killing people in Nyamata and the other areas, Rusizi Nahandi.
In the southern Rwanda.
In these other areas. So there was direct involvement and backing of. Remember when Rusesabagina was brought here, he thought he was actually on a mission to Burundi. He thought he was heading to Burundi. It was a deliberate mission, so to speak, because he had not just the followers or members of his rebel group in Burundi, but he also had been apparently promised to now go and meet these leaders officially. Now you don't just take a plane to go, right? Presumably to go to meet the leaders of another country without already having the confidence that this is actually going to happen, because we've already worked together in any way, in any case, in different ways.
Of course, Rusesabagina is or was at that time the president or founder of the MRCD, which had FLN as its armed
and FLN is an extension. It's a faction of FDLR, because was using the same some of the elements from FDLR, because FDLR kept having disagreements within the leaders. So they would have all these different factions. So you have FLN, you have Rudy, you have these different factions, but they are all actually FDLR. That's the parent organization. So Burundi was involved in so many different ways, including, you have heard that the current party in charge in Burundi sent the FDD, that they have members within their ranks who were refugees in Rwanda in 1994 and who may have taken part in the killings here. And Rwanda has asked previously that Burundi does something about these people. There have also been suggestions that maybe even the current president actually could have been around here. I'm not saying he was involved in one or another, but there are strong suggestions and suspicions that people close to him may at a personal level been involved with what happened here in the genocide against the Tutsi. There were acts of cannibalism involving Burundian refugees in 1994 in Rwanda here, especially in the southern regions where they were refugees from Burundi. So, so it's not something that just emerged. But then, of course, fast forward to the recent developments, more recent developments. You have, I think, the economic challenges in Burundi, and then they needed some bit of support or financial resources. And then they had Tshisekedi turn to. Tshisekedi has a problem of M23, and Burundi says, no, I'm here to come and flush them out. After all, these are Rwandans, we know how to deal with them. And then Tshisekedi is like, okay, by the way, you come and take even, I will give you Rubaya, I give you this money. These people say, there have been suggestions that a single Burundian soldier was meant to receive was it a couple of thousands of dollars a month? Some people have said in the end came down to $400, but still people say no, that was not also given to them. Most of it went to the leaders of Burundi, the president and the others around him. So, but there were also mineral interests inside Congo. They had an interest in the South Kivu regions because of Red Tabara, the rebels of Burundi there. That they had created a joint task force between Burundi and to help deal with Tabara problem around the areas of Minembwe and Nahandi, around that place.
That's also closer to the Burundian border.
Yes. But then in the North Kivu, there's the aspect of Rwanda. Just, how they closed our border and all, border with Burundi and all. So there was that sense feeling that they wanted to to use Congo to hurt Rwanda, but also there were minerals interests in Rubaya. Now, when they deployed initially as part of ICRAF, the East African Regional Force, East African Community Regional Force, in the regions of Masisi and the Rutshuru and all, Burundians behaved in a strange way, contrary to what the East African community had agreed. They came in as a belligerent kind of pro-Congo side player, kind of, you know. So they took a side, contrary to the mission of EAC force.
Because the East African Community Regional Force was deployed to observe
to stand
the
between these warring parties. In fact, what happened is that M23 withdrew from, is it around 80% of the territory they held? You know, went back and confined itself to a very small territory. But then, Burundi was very clear. The places, the positions that Burundi was holding, the Congolese forces came and occupied, and there was no problem. That's when we had those issues of the attacks Huro village,
this village,
where the Burundians were actually, according to witnesses' testimonies, they were standing there not far from Huro. In fact, in the environs of the area as a combination of FDLR, and this I got from, again, the FDLR, former combatants of FDLR at Mutobo. Some of them.
So they've also talked about the attack on Huro, where 300 homes were burnt down.
So FDLR, my group, called there's Nyatura, there's another my group, then there was Arendos, and then Faridese. They're the ones they mentioned to have burnt Huro. So the Burundians were not directly involved in burning, but they were watching as this was happening.
Their base was close to this village.
Yeah. So that was what was, Huro was within their jurisdiction, their territory. So this happening on their watch.
That is in October 2020.
Was it 2023? Yeah, 2023. So, and of course, the attitude of Burundi, Burundian troops, and the deals they struck with the deals between their president and Tshisekedi, in a way, it emboldened Tshisekedi to a point where he said, no, I don't want the rest of the East African forces. Those ones are not on my side, but Burundi, you are with me, do the job. Yeah, so of course later we saw now the whole EAC the arrangement collapsing, M23 advancing, protecting themselves and the populations. FARDC and Burundi is now directly working together, and FDLR and there was Arendo and the mercenaries and the European mercenaries and all these different groups. Later SADC comes in because SADC arrived in December of 2023.
When the East African force was withdrawing.
Everybody was withdrawing. So, and along the way they lose Rubaya, which everybody says, everybody's accusing M23 of taking Rubaya. But in Rubaya and the surrounding areas, just like elsewhere, the Burundi forces and the FDLR, who were in charge at that time, represented a significant threat, and actually they were a threat to the people. People were dying every day, and M23, and they have kept saying this: we are coming to protect, to defend these populations. But nobody was actually talking about Rubaya until M23 drove these coalition forces from Rubaya. Rubaya was never in the hands of Congolese government in any case. It was FDLR in charge in Rubaya.
This is a mining town?
Yeah, it's a mining town, but largely really, and as we saw from what Teddy Mazina, the journalist, found there, photojournalist found there. These are largely artisanal operations. So Burundians with retreat from that area all the way, of course, as they kept losing positions. That's how they ended up now. And they consolidated their positions in Minova.
That is.
And I'll say something. It was the Burundians in Minova working with the FDLR. There's an element, there's a reason why Burundians were working so closely with the FDLR, among others. One of them was the fact that FDLR has known this region so well for so many years. Some of them were born there and grew up there. So these guys needed their guidance in some cases. So, but they had also had that history working together, even during the days of FLN, but also other in other situations. Now, when they retreated to Minova, the plan again, keep observing Rwanda, keep seeing what's happening in Rwanda. The right time comes, you probably strike, right? Rwanda. But at the same time, they are planning to go and take Rubaya again.
Back in North Kivu.
In North Kivu. So because how it is, this is Minova. There's a huge wall, if you like, a wall of high grounds, a range of mountains or hills that M23 was occupying, at least some of them. Mure, Rukara, and other behind Ngungu and all. So indeed, in January this year, the Burundians put together a big offensive and attacked M23 positions in those hills. And briefly occupied Ngungu and these other areas around Ngungu. And that's what provoked eventually the advance by M23 on Goma and on Sachi, Mubambiro, and also on Minova. Because then 2 days later or so, once M23 received the reinforcements from these other axes, they beat the Burundians back and FDLR. And then they followed them to Minova, and these ones now proceeded all the way. Minova is in the Karaye territory, so they proceeded further down to Kavumu.
Yeah, Kavumu airport, around Kavumu.
Around the airport of Kavumu. And that allowed for now M23 to completely block them and deploy a force on a peninsula behind Mubambiro to allow for now the forces in the high hills of Muremure and these other directions, Ngugu, Kwamadimba, to now, so they split into three groups. Eventually, the fourth one also emerged. They also got a special force that came through the northern direction, and then they converged. They linked up on around Sachi and then Muambiro and then onwards, proceeding to the direction of Goma, where they linked up with other M23 forces from the other directions. So exactly that's what played out. Yeah, so we are talking about Burundi and its role with and involvement with the FDLR. It's not something new. It has been going on and on. There had been some attempts to have this resolved. At one point, things were moving the right direction. There's
starting in 2020 when Rwanda.
There's a time even in Burundi, and I think Burundi facilitated in the handing over an FDLR senior guy to Rwanda. what I think crossed to Burundi from Tanzania or something like that. Rwanda at one point arrested people who were members of Red Tabara and handed them over to Burundi. Were they 16? Yeah, around that number, close to 20. So these attempts, but behind the scenes, Burundi didn't cut that cord, didn't stop that collaboration from what we are seeing.
But then,
and then the words, of course, by the president. What else do you expect him to say? Because
this interview with BBC was interesting because it came within days after Rwandan and Burundian military and intelligence officials had met, and we understand that actually the two countries were looking at how to normalize their relations and see how they could protect themselves, to see their security interests observed. This interview, what do you think? Because even President Ndayishimiye accused Rwanda of planning to attack Burundi, and so this interview happening at a time when the two countries are looking at ways to normalize their relations. What impact does this have?
Well, a lot remains to be seen, but I don't think it is the most provocative interview he has given in recent times. Remember when he was in Kinshasa and said, no, I want to come and support the Rwandan youth to liberate themselves. So he repeated the words of President Tshisekedi that they want to come and remove the government of Rwanda. Huh? So that happened not long ago.
Yeah.
It's like a year ago or so. In the open, publicly. Of course, him reaching out to Rwanda, he saw the advances of M23 southwards after the capture of Bukavu, marching towards Uvira. Uvira is at the border with Burundi, not very far from Bujumbura, where they have their main airport, if not the only international airport of Burundi. The only international airport of Burundi. So I think he ended up in what do you call it, between a rock and a hard place. And he probably felt like reaching out. He's going to ask Rwanda to use its maybe perceived leverage or influence over M23.
Not to cross into Burundi.
Not necessarily just crossing, but there are other groups. There are these other groups of Burundians, that have deep-seated grievances and very legitimate when you hear what they say, concerns on the governance issues in Burundi. So if you allow those ones to cross and you don't notice, you allow them to cross, that can cause problems in Burundi. So I think the whole idea was, okay, let me speak to Kigali, figure out, because they know Rwanda has on so many occasions actually come to the aid of Burundi, to support. Rwanda and Burundi are brotherly or sisterly countries for so many years. Remember the days the RDF deployed a chopper to go and they put out a fire at the market in Bujumbura, I think. So this brotherly, sisterly have been there, even as we have had these problems with them. And I think Rwanda has always been open to really engaging and indicated they want to have peace with Burundi. Rwanda is a country that whose economy is really strongly based on things like tourism, people visiting our country, a good image. The reputation of Rwanda is an asset for us as a country, as a people, and therefore living in peace, in harmony with your neighbors, it is in our best interests. And I think continuously the leaders of Rwanda want to see this happen. So regardless of the problems you have caused Rwanda, or the problems you have caused the Rwandan leaders, or whatever you have said, or I think Rwanda is always ready to listen to you and to see if you can work together to get over these issues. Yeah. So, but then you have a situation where this person is not somebody you can trust. He's also haunted by what he has been saying. I want to remove President Kagame. I want to, this country is this country is that, this country is that. You have attacked people in North Kivu, you have killed people, you have worked closely and in all ways with the genocidal militia that has all this record, and you have caused a lot of damage and hurt so many communities. So it's basically, I think, caught up, as I said. Yeah, so we can only hope that a miracle happens, and he sees that having a good relationship with Rwanda is in his interest as well. So, yeah, but
let's talk about the diplomatic efforts that have been initiated to calm the tensions in Eastern DR Congo and to prevent this conflict from becoming a regional conflict or regional war. There's the EAC SADC engagements, some at the presidential or at the governmental levels, where these East African community leaders and SADC leaders met twice, and recently on the 24th March, they decided actually to appoint new facilitators. There are now 5 facilitators for this Eastern DR Congo process. A lot had been said by the Congolese government that actually the initial facilitators that were those are former President of Kenya Uhuru Kenyatta, former President of Nigeria Olusegun Obasanjo, and former Prime Minister of Ethiopia Haile Mariam Desalegn. That this was not actually an inclusive panel. Yeah, they wanted to represent more regions of the African continent, but
and
also
to have women,
and also the gender aspect, even in the language aspect as well. So all these have been addressed. How do you see this EAC SADC initiative take this conflict to an end?
You know, there's so many factors in there. One, I don't think SADC has really demonstrated that they want a solution that is durable. Yes, the statements we have seen, but for instance, why do we still have their forces in Goma and outside Goma, in areas under M23 control?
But they have agreed to dismantle this mission.
They have said that, but on the ground, that's not what you see. I visited Mobambiro. I spoke to SADC forces there from Tanzania, from South Africa, and from Malawi. Yes, they may not have been in position to speak officially and to say so much, but I didn't get a sense that there has been a briefing around a planned withdrawal. Phased or not phased, but they didn't seem to have that information.
Like formally that they know
Yeah,
that
yeah,
they're going
yeah.
to.
The same thing in Goma. I didn't get a sense that. So nothing has changed in terms of the tensions. Yeah, at individual level, you could see the M23 guys having interactions with these some DRC colleagues, soldiers. But at the institutional level, the tensions are still there. SADC has a hostile force in M23 controlled territories. That force should not be there. That is a source of potential disaster. Anything could happen. Because clearly that force is not welcome in M23 controlled positions or areas. So you cannot be saying then, okay, want to talk about diplomacy, want to do this, while on the ground, you are not helping to solve these issues. So there has to be things have to move together. What you do and what you say, there has to be alignment. At least at one point you want to be seen to be aligned around all these things. Number two, I understand the whole idea of having an inclusive panel, but I don't also rule out some interests, geopolitical interests, interest in the question of Congo. Somebody waking up and say, okay, we want to, there was a suggestion, former Prime Minister, for instance, Ethiopia is part of the panel, let's remove him. Those decisions are not normal. They're not.
Yeah, but apparently, if you look at it, it's like former Prime Minister Desalegn was replaced by former President of Ethiopia.
I get you, but maybe there's more that meets the eye to these kind of decisions. Was he perceived to be maybe somebody who is close to anybody in this region? I don't know. The inclusion of the former president of South Africa, was he acting on the panel? South Africa, South Africa is it a neutral country in this whole thing? I wouldn't characterize South Africa as
of course,
a neutral.
they have forces in Eastern DR Congo.
Yeah, you get it. So what does that mean? What does that say? At the same time, you see a Congo Minister of Defense going to South Africa. They are signing documents about or making public statements about supporting and working together about security issues and defense and collaboration. We like it to see South Africa now pursuing a bilateral engagement with Congo, and maybe they want to keep their forces there under now a bilateral, the same thing that Burundi did when they now switched from ICRAF to having a bilateral arrangement. I wish like to see maybe South Africa move in the same direction as well. So there's quite a lot of uncertainty. It is still too early to predict how it is all likely to pan out. But it doesn't matter how many partners you're going to have in place. It doesn't matter how high profiles personalities you're going to have on your panel. It is about the political will. Is Kinshasa open to having a genuine engagement with M23? You cannot talk of, I want to pursue a political solution. At the same time, you have put money, millions of dollars on the head of the same people you want to have a conversation with.
They have a bounty on them.
Exactly. So there's a lot of contradictions that you see. I'm like, okay, let's wait and see.
Of course, the EAC SADC initiatives is not the only peace initiative that wants to solve the problem. There's also, as we noted earlier, there's Qatar that has also managed to secure a meeting between the President of Rwanda and President Tshisekedi. There's also the...
But what did Tshisekedi say after that meeting?
That's interesting.
The interviews he gave. Yeah. So, I think you can have the meetings, you can have the talks, but your attitude during and after, the actions you take. We are seeing of course, images and these videos of the Belgian troops arriving, and I know that at Kindu, Burundi, Belgians have always had people training Congolese soldiers, but if they are reinforcing, what does that mean? You are talking of, we want to talk peace, but then you are, what you're doing is again contradicting what you're saying. So,
but Congo has toned down their rhetoric, especially with regards to M23 and the possibility of direct peace talks, especially during the right before these failed Luanda talks.
Yeah.
Congo had.
You know why? Why? There's no guarantee that this is going to be what they do continuously going forward. But then, and they said it. They told us the reason. The foreign minister said, Kaikwamba said, given the developments on the battlefield. The context is shifting, is changing, rapidly. Because increasingly Congo is, this position is weakening and weakening and weakening.
Sure.
And that means automatically that M23 and AFC position is strengthening, they are gaining an upper hand. And that means that the longer you delay, their terms, the tougher their terms are likely to be. I mean, the M23 AFC. So, I think they are stuck in between. They are confused. They are listening to so many people. There's no clarity on what Congo wants at this stage, and it's hard to predict what happens tomorrow.
But now, where do we go? Like, what should be the way forward in this conflict? Because apparently there has been a lot. There has been a lot of deployments, also withdrawal. Let's say, take the example of the East African Community Regional Force, but also even SADC being now considering the withdrawal of its force. What should be the way forward in this conflict to see at least Eastern DR Congo having peace? I should note that the U.S. Congressman Ronnie Jackson actually said that these countries, like the same thing that has been said even before, that these countries need to sit together to see how they should normalize their relations and make sure that this Eastern Congo place region is pacified in the interest of all the countries that have a border around it.
I think obviously that makes a lot of sense. Can't agree more. But then I think Congo, the government of Congo, has to get the act together and say, you know what? Let's solve this. Let's talk peace. Let's be open. Let's protect our people. Let's acknowledge the rights of our people. Let's do ABCD. Whatever they have been doing, they need to change. Not just rhetoric, but actions. Are they in position to? I don't know. I don't think so. I can only say let's wait and see. You can have panels. You can have all these. But then at the end of the day, who is having leverage over Tshisekedi? Is he in position to make an independent decision? That can also be looked at. Is he in position to actually say, you know what, then let me just do what is right for my people. It's not about ego. It's not about my ego getting hurt or bruised. It's not about what people are going to say. It's about the safety of our people, the rights of the people that are fighting for their rights. And I still believe that at this stage, maybe he still has a lot of role to play as far as that is concerned, but the longer it delays, I'm afraid he might not have any cards at all. He doesn't have many at this stage as well already. Yeah, so...
Plus even the Congolese opposition groups are also collaborating.
You cannot really expect former President Olusegun, he was involved with Congo before, to come and work out magic for you. Everybody knows what the solution is can be. He just respects.
So it will circle back to Congo, Kinshasa.
Exactly.
One of the ways that international community and other countries that have sought to intervene in this conflict is by way of sanctions. You have Belgium also engaging in the conflict in a way on the diplomatic front, if you like. That Rwanda has actually said Belgium has led this campaign against Rwanda, a campaign that's hostile to Rwanda and Rwanda's interests. And this EU has also imposed sanctions on Rwanda leaders and M23 rebels. How does this foreign involvement, impact the peace efforts or regional or African-led peace efforts for Eastern DR Congo?
I think it is very intentional. It's very intentional, the meddling. Because every time something is about to happen in direction of finding a solution, talking peace, or engaging, and this is an African-led process. something happens. These guys will say, okay, there's sanctions, they will release a statement, they will, and all this is basically designed to inflame, to kind of torpedo kind of whatever has been ongoing. Like the Belgian government, the very unfortunate role they have been having lately. You know, you have to look at the things in the big picture, the grand scheme of things, and pay attention at how international politics plays out. Some people still believe that we are at least partially still colonies.
Of course, Belgium is a former colonial ruler of Rwanda, Burundi, and DRC.
So they still think that we are at worst colonies, at best territories they are in charge of, they look after. They are our stewards to them. That's what they believe. They still have those what you call neo-colonial hangovers, tendencies. You see this play out, and Belgium is absent everywhere else in the world. They are absent everywhere else. Their relevance comes in when they are hosting EU leaders, because the EU headquarters are in Brussels. But other than that, Belgium is nowhere else. When the US is having a quarrel with the Chinese, the Belgians are nowhere to be seen. When the Russians are having issues with Ukraine, the government of Belgium, outside of the context of EU, they are nowhere to be seen. When the Sudanese are having issues, the Belgians are nowhere to be seen. When there is a slight incident in the Great Lakes region, the Belgians are all of a sudden at the front lines. So it speaks to this mindset of neocolonialism and colonialism, actually. Yeah, and Congo Belge, Leopold II, legacy, and all these kind of things. Yeah, that's number one. Number two, there are radicals within the Congolese diaspora that have a significant say in Belgium. They have joined the positions of influence, some of them in parliament. We have seen some hate speech coming from some of these elements. And again, it's about interests. The moment a member of parliament from that group says, I want us to do this and this and this, a colleague seated next to them, as long as it doesn't affect their own constituency, they are happy to support and to not block.
So even the Congolese diaspora in Belgium are influencing Brussels' decisions.
Yeah, and remember, they also have a leverage to an extent of Tshisekedi as well. He was part of them.
Yeah, he grew up in Belgium and studied there.
He did business there, whatever, worked there, has connections there, has friends there. Who knows what kind of business he's doing with some of these people? Business that could even be extending to Eastern Congo regions. So there's quite a lot. Yeah, but the most important thing for me is that attitude of colonial, and also we want to flex. Belgium has to be seen to be still flexing muscles and to still be relevant. They need to remain relevant.
To have a say in the conflict.
To remain relevant, to still, to remain relevant, to have a say, to be the arbiters to be the ones they go to. The Americans will go to seek opinion. To be the ones the Chinese will go to say, what do you have to say about the Great Lakes region? That has been the situation for so many years. I don't know going forward with what we're seeing and how, let's say, Trump is disrupting the orthodox, what the convention way of doing things and all. I don't know how sustainable it is, but you can clearly see that this is actually what has been playing out. Do not also forget the role of maybe not very significant, but they still play a part. A few members of Rwandan diaspora who are in Belgium, the likes of Jambo,
ASBL, this organization.
Yeah, these are the young generations of children, of people who with a very tragic role in what happened here, former president, former ministers. So their children have come together to try to shape the opinion, public opinion about Rwanda and to influence in a way. They are guys who have committed genocide here, some of whom have families in Brussels, the guys who were at the ICTR, the former UN tribunal, who have friends and family links and all in Belgium. Yeah, so there's quite a lot that circles around that negative role of Belgium. Yeah, but I think Rwanda has made it very clear. Belgium is attacking Rwanda's interests. Belgium is a hostile country when it comes to Rwanda. It's very, very clear. And Rwanda has come out very clearly. And whatever then Belgium does, and whoever conducts or deals with Belgium on matters where Rwanda should be concerned, they will be knowing that they're dealing with a party that has been declared hostile by Rwanda towards Rwanda. So, yeah.
Well, I think we have covered a lot of territory in this conflict. So it's my pleasure to be sitting down with you, James Munyaneza, and I hope to...
Pleasure. Thank you, Moise.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, dear listeners. Thank you for joining us today. Please make sure that you follow other episodes of this conversation on our YouTube channel. We promise to keep more coming.